Okay, so let's unpack this. You've undoubtedly seen the headlines, right? Heard the amazing transformation stories,
Mhm.
the ketogenic diet, keto. It seems like it's absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
But what if it's far more complex with like hidden mechanisms and maybe surprising long-term impacts that most people don't realize?
Yeah, exactly. What's truly fascinating about keto, I think, is that it's much more than just, the latest weight loss trend. It's actually a very specific metabolic shift. It has this rich history and a really complex interplay of effects on the body. So our mission today really is to extract the most important nuggets from the research, to understand its core mechanisms, the scientifically backed benefits, and yes, some pretty significant, maybe lesser known risks too.
Right. So let's get into that metabolic shift you mentioned. We're talking about drastically cutting carbohydrates,
Yeah.
really drastically, to induce this state called ketosis, usually limiting carbs to what, like 20 to 50 grams a day, which is tiny.
It is very low, yeah.
So that means your macros look like something like 70-80% fat, maybe 10-20% protein, and that tiny sliver of carbs. What does that literally do inside our bodies? How does the body actually, change its fuel source?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this metabolic reprogramming, it's really what drives a lot of the effects people talk about. Essentially, when glucose from carbs becomes scarce, like really scarce, your liver steps in, it starts breaking down fat into these specific molecules called ketone bodies. You might have heard of acetoacetate and beta-hydroxybutyrate. Those ketones then become the primary energy source for almost everything, even your brain, which normally loves glucose. So the diet shifts heavily towards things like healthy fats, avocados, olive oil, nuts, fatty proteins, lots of low-carb veggies like leafy greens, while you strictly have to cut out grains, sugary foods, most fruits because they're high-carb, starchy vegetables, usual carb suspects.
Okay, so the body's running on ketones now. What does that really mean for our health? Let's try and sift through some of the claimed benefits. What holds up scientifically? I mean, one of the most remarkable things is its origin story, right? It wasn't for weight loss initially.
Absolutely not. That's a key point. The ketogenic diet was actually developed way back in the 1920s. It was a medical therapy specifically for drug-resistant epilepsy, particularly in children. And, it continues to be an incredibly effective treatment for that.
Wow. Okay, so beyond that very specific medical use, what about for, the average person hearing about it? Lots of people definitely see rapid short-term weight loss. That's often what draws them in.
Partly due to losing water weight, right? And maybe feeling fuller from all the fat.
Yeah, increased satiety is a big factor. But the caveat is always about the long term, isn't it? Like, effectiveness over years and the whole weight regain issue seem to be ongoing questions. It also seems to show some promising short-term improvements for type 2 diabetes, better insulin sensitivity, blood sugar control. I've seen reports of lower HbA1c, which is that key long-term marker.
That's true. There is evidence for that in the short term, but, and this is crucial, it absolutely needs careful medical supervision. You can't just jump into keto if you have diabetes without talking to your doctor. Things can change fast.
Right, good point.
And, you've hit on something critical there. While those short-term benefits can be really enticing, it does raise that important question. What are the long-term trade-offs? What are you giving up for those potential gains? For starters, many people initially experience what everyone calls the keto flu.
Ah, yes, the dreaded keto flu.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Headaches, feeling dizzy, tired, nausea, even muscle cramps or constipation. It's often down to dehydration and electrolyte imbalances as your body makes that big metabolic adjustment.
Okay, that makes sense for the beginning stages. But what about deeper, sort of longer-term worries? We've heard concerns about nutritional deficiencies. Is that a real risk?
It definitely is. Because you're cutting out entire food groups, fruits, whole grains, legumes, many vegetables, there's a significant risk of not getting enough fiber. Or essential vitamins like B vitamins, vitamin C, folate, and minerals like potassium, magnesium, iron. And that can quietly impact things like your gut health, even bone health over time if you're not supplementing really carefully.
And what about heart health? There's talk about cholesterol.
Yes, that's another big one. There's potential for elevated LDL cholesterol, the bad kind, especially if someone's keto diet relies heavily on saturated fats, like lots of red meat and butter. That can increase heart disease risk for some individuals. And then there's kidney health. The typically higher animal protein intake can increase the risk of kidney stones because it makes urine more acidic. So it's something strictly avoided for anyone who already has kidney disease.
Wow, okay. And what about this newer research finding? This idea of aging cells, cellular senescence linked to long-term keto. That sounds, well, Pretty serious. What does that actually mean for our bodies? Why is that popping up now?
That's a really surprising and frankly quite concerning area of recent research.
Yeah. What some studies are suggesting is that sticking to keto continuously for a very long time might actually induce this state called cellular senescence. These aren't just like old cells. They're cells that stop dividing properly but stick around, and they can start sending out inflammatory signals that damage surrounding tissues, particularly observed potentially affecting heart and kidney functions long term.
Oof. So maybe not staying on it constantly is key.
It really raises that possibility. It suggests that maybe cycling on and off keto or taking breaks might be important to mitigate some of those potential long-term effects. It's still early research, but definitely something to watch.
And just practically speaking, even setting aside the biology, this diet just is hard, right? It's notoriously restrictive.
Which makes it incredibly challenging for most people to sustain long-term. And often, that leads right back to weight regain once they stop. And there's one more angle, often overlooked the environmental one. With its high reliance on animal products, keto tends to have one of the highest carbon footprints compared to other ways of eating.
That's a very valid point, too. You see, knowledge is most valuable when it's understood and applied thoughtfully. This deep dive, I think, shows that keto is a powerful metabolic tool. It has very specific, medically proven uses, like for epilepsy, and some notable short-term effects. But it also carries significant potential long-term risks, practical challenges, and these broader considerations, like the environmental impact, that really need to be part of the conversation. There's always more to learn, and looking at it from multiple perspectives really enriches our understanding, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So for you listening, considering a diet like keto means asking some deeper questions, perhaps. Beyond just the immediate results, what's the potential long-term impact on your unique body, on your relationship with food, and maybe even how does it fit into the bigger picture of the planet? Definitely something to think critically about as you navigate your own health journey.